Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, here we are again, continuing on in this new year, in this January here of 2023, with none other than one of the books that started my whole journey towards wellness and health. One of the first books, which is How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. Those of you that have been tuning in, whether it be live or watching this video at your leisure, at your convenience, know that I have decided to read these books with you and to also provide context and give further examples of information, or rather provide further examples which may or may not always support what's in this book. I mean, things do evolve and things do change. It is, in fact, the only constant is change. But primarily, actually, what we're seeing, having made it all the way to chapter 4, today we're going to be covering the fourth part of chapter 4 because chapter 4 is quite a lengthy chapter. Not surprising given that it's on nutrition, right? There should be a lot of information on nutrition because food is thy medicine. But yeah, those of you that have been tuning in know that I've decided to sort of embark on this journey with you all because I thought it would be great to give you more than just sound bites and salacious headlines or memes to kind of give you bite-sized information, but rather to give you some more meat so that people can actually begin to have intelligent and profound conversations, dialogues about why they're supporting their particular ideology or belief. It's not enough to say, well, this is what everyone else is telling us. The media, the politicians, the FDA, none of these people are above you, greater than you, or have a closer connection with God or one source, Allah, Great Spirit, that would give them the ability to tell you what's best for you. We all come from her likeness at the end of the day. But what's missing, because we're at a time of very heavy propaganda and brainwashing, is that people are very happy to regurgitate whatever is being spewed by media, politicians, and even celebrities, I have to say, in order to get sort of conformity from the masses, like this herd-like mentality. But nobody is able to actually have an honest, in-depth conversation proving why they are choosing to believe whatever they're being told. It's not enough to say the experts, because the experts, when you say the experts are saying, well, there are experts that are always going to be on both sides of the argument. And you always have to look at what incentive lies behind any one study, any one expert's findings, because humans are just human at the end of the day. I can't say this enough because it's somewhat frustrating for me that people have really, well, not, I shouldn't say people. Some folks, have really decided to forgo their own abilities to critically think and to research, to go beyond what is being told by people who are mostly interested in preserving their own privilege, power, and wealth over and above your own well-being. Let's be completely honest, like completely transparent. If we wanted to provide things like the basic necessities for everyone on this planet, including access to clean water, medical care, true medical care, education, not indoctrination, where you teach people how to think for themselves versus how to regurgitate what you've told them that they should be believing. We could be providing these resources to everyone, but instead we have a system that perpetuates keeping wealth and power in the hands of a few, of a minority, so that they can then oversee everyone else. You don't have to be a scientist or a politician or an overly educated person even to see that. All you need to do is step back and look at the bigger picture, because there's always trillions of dollars available for a stimulus. There's always trillions of dollars available for a war, right? But somehow there isn't enough money for giving people the opportunity for a livable wage, or giving them the necessities such as access to healthcare and education. None of it really makes sense. And then we have people that we call billionaires who have far too much resources that they are hoarding, where they're buying islands, flying private jets, in some cases, building ridiculous yachts for hundreds of millions of dollars. And for what? And for what? When there are people literally on the street suffering from mental illness, drug addiction, abuse, etc. So if we wanted to, and if rather, let me say this, if the system wanted to be inclusive and give everybody something, they would and they could. It's been my experience as somebody who travels frequently to the continent. For those of you that are not melanated, when we refer to the continent, that means Africa. I travel oftentimes to the continent. And again, as an economist by trade, I can tell you that it's been my observation that there really is no such thing as a poor country. There are poor people, but countries inherently are not poor. They have resources. They have their tax dollars that they get from their residents. They have wealth beyond, because they're able to grow food, sell AI, IP, so in artificial intelligence, intellectual property. In the cases, I'm thinking specifically of like countries more like Japan, technologies. Never mind if you are a country that's also been blessed with minerals and are valuable metals like gold and silver, perhaps sulfur, or you have diamonds, which really shouldn't even be worth that much, to be honest. So those of you that know the water diamond paradox. It's something that we learned early on in Economics 101, which is basically, in essence, that we have been tricked into believing that diamonds are valuable and that they're scarce, and that water is abundant and not as valuable, which is completely false, because diamonds cannot keep you alive. But try living a couple of days without water. See how far you make it. So, again, it was my observation that countries have, which is why you hear, even when you think about like countries that are very like corrupted and dictators maybe have been exiled, they'll normally leave. When they're exiling those countries, their very own countries, they're leaving with billions and trillions of dollars that they've maybe stashed somewhere in Switzerland or Cayman Islands. I mention these countries specifically because I believe that they are places of refuge. Correct me if I'm wrong. For people that are evading taxes. I'm just spilling all the beans today. All the tea is being spilt. But you know what I mean? So it just goes to show you that people are always self-serving and they have an interest. They need to feel important. They need to feel like they're above them and greater than the people that they are serving, that they are supposed to be working for, which is the populace. So, it's an interesting time. And I just want to be able to give people the other side, which you're not hearing. And also I want to be able to encourage people to get back into reading books, the places where we can find actual information with footnotes and references, meaning they're quoting their sources that are coming from medical journals or scientific journals, that are not just statements that are being made because you're an influencer and you can say, this is great and it worked for me and everybody should do this. Let's all go keto. Let's all go paleo. Doesn't make sense. When you really think about it, let's all do this. It doesn't make sense. We have bioindividuality, our immune systems, which I'm not even really fond of using that term anymore, because where is this immune system when you think about it? We have a lymphatic system, we have detoxification systems such as our kidneys, etc., our skin, is a detoxifying organ rather. So, we know where these things are in the body and we can find them, we can locate them, and we can observe that they in fact do remove waste. These things matter from person to person, your ability to process, remove and detoxify toxins from the body. All of these things matter. And so your ability to do one versus somebody else's ability to do one will dictate what you need for your own health, right? So I think that that's fairly obvious to see, but if it's not, please let me know in the comment sections. But again, this was just, me wanting to explain to you why, reiterating the fact that I think it's necessary that we return to books and stop returning to posts for information or tweets for news sources. We need to be able to go beyond the surface, and we need to really understand what it is that we are either perpetuating and promoting, which I think is very, very careless for a lot of people that aren't in wellness, that haven't a clue, that are telling people that they should all be doing X, Y, and the Z, primarily this. It's quite absurd, because what grounds do you have to stand on? Have you looked at the 80,000 pages that were released in 2022 over a particular product that was forced upon us in 2021? Have you read those journals? You were quick to promote it on your feed and say, hey, everybody should do this. It's good for everyone. It'll save grandma. Have you done your justice also? Have you done your part also in looking at the product and the trials that were conducted with that particular product, and how people seemingly are unfortunately transitioning and passing at an exponential rate? On the day that I'm recording this, which is the 13th of January, just yesterday, Lisa Marie Presley passed. May she rest from cardiac arrest. So we don't know why Ray Liotta passed away. Another young woman, I think she was a fighter of some sort. Is it Vanessa Lee or Veronica Lee? Really young woman, 18 years old, passed away around Christmas as well. People are just dropping, young people, never mind the people that we're seeing on the field, especially out in Europe, but even here in the United States. Didn't we just see a young man play for the Buffaloes? What was his name? I don't even recall. Excuse me. I'm not a sports fanatic or a fan for that matter. Black gentleman who had cardiac arrest, right? Playing for the Buffaloes. One of many. Many of these things are happening. They're not giving us a reason why cardiac arrest is happening. Although if you've looked at the 80,000 pages that a judge ordered a particular company to release so that we could see their clinical trials, it clearly correlates, and it is clearly stated as a potential side effect from taking said product that myocarditis, et cetera, can take place. Also, things like shingles are on the rise, and cancers. All of this stuff was also in the trials, but you choose to, because you're an influencer and because you've been paid some money, tell people how to restore their health or keep their health by doing this without looking at both sides of the story and both sides of the coin, which is a universal law that there are going to be two sides of any story. There's always going to be a feminine and a masculine, a yang and a yin, a plus and a minus for anything. There are no absolutes. As far as I can think of. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's reckless, it's irresponsible, it's immature, dangerous AF to not do your research and look at the other side and look at the people who are being shunned and censored and what they're telling you, because they don't have a paycheck coming to them. They're not motivated by fame. On the contrary, they're being ostracized and marginalized. Before you go ahead and promote, whatever the herd is telling us that we need to be promoting and going along with in order to avoid cancel culture, which is, boy, what a convenient time for this to be taking place when we have over the years cultivated unknowingly a culture that is really designed to suppress free thinking, to silence, rebels and fighters that are working on our behalf to preserve our liberties. And we didn't know this all whilst we were thinking we were going along with this cancel culture because it was cool and because, some people needed to be silenced and yada, yada, yada. But no, now we're paying for it. We supported this culture, you know. Personally, I stopped supporting cancel culture when it moved out of it just sort of punishing celebrities for stupidity or silly actions or decisions that they may have taken. And I'm not proud that I was supporting cancel culture, but I'll tell you when I stopped supporting cancel culture. I personally stopped supporting cancel culture in January of 2021. That was when, at the time, President Trump was deplatformed from Twitter. And even though I was extremely anti-Trump at the time, now I'm just like, I'm a little bit more even keel because the person that's come in after Trump and what's transpired after Trump has left office is, I think, considerably worse. But in any case, I'm not trying to get political here. It's really, truly not about Democrat, Republican. I think these are all wankers, to be completely honest with you all. And I think that it's a fallacy to believe that we should be even supporting this whole system called politics and democracy, because it is full on rubbish. I'm actually going to put a video in about this now before I get reading. Sorry, I've gone on a tangent because that's what the AlkaliYogi does. This is just part of keeping it honest and real with you all. But I'm going to insert something here to kind of help you understand why I just think the whole thing is smoke and mirrors. Anyways, it might as well just be a Hollywood green screen, which oftentimes it is. No cap, as the young folks would say. But I'll say that's when I stopped supporting cancel culture, because I was like, hang on a minute. We have a privately owned company, a company in the private sector that is able to silence a sitting president for the superpower on the planet. So now, Jack Dorsey or whomever, you can silence an elected president for the most powerful, allegedly, wealthy country in the world because you don't like what he's saying or your folks don't like what he's saying? I don't know why this didn't make everyone stop, pause, and say, hang on a minute. We've got non-elected billionaires silencing elected politicians that are supposed to be working and serving the population. Now, it's not as black and white as that, because obviously these politicians are not serving us, right? They're primarily serving themselves, all of them. I don't care which side you're on. So again, I'm not advocating for red or blue. I think it's all bollocks, 100%. I think it's all foolery, foolala. None of it's real. But at the same time, if I'm going to be playing along in this matrix, we have to have clear and definitive boundaries. And we cannot be giving corporations already know are lobbying and pretty much own these politicians and have them in their own back pocket. And that's evident, because it's odd that we would even allow corporations to lobby on their behalf, or to preserve their own ability to either avoid taxes or clean up the mess that they've made in the environment, yada, yada, yada. Like, the whole thing is absurd. But surely enough, people didn't come out and riot over that. They didn't say, hang on a minute. Who are these private citizen billionaires who have all this say and influence? We have one particular family, which is now the biggest contributor to the WHO, World Health Organization. It's not a country, it's a family. And you know who they are, right? They have a whole foundation. They are the biggest financial supporters of the WHO. The influence that gives them over the WHO is unprecedented. It's unethical and it's immoral, because you can't tell me that they then don't have the ability to push forth whatever agenda they might be for onto the WHO, which is now reliant on their monies, right? Contributions, in order to continue as an entity that is obviously not serving the people anymore, but is going to be serving of their masters, their contributors. anyways, I wasn't going to do this, but again, this is part of, rather I should say I didn't have this foreplanned, but this is part of like what it's the beauty of just being able to have this conversation with you all in sort of like real time. And just the benefit of having this conversation with you all in real time and live is that even when we go off on these tangents, by we, I mean me, we can add little bits and pieces of information that support what I'm trying to illustrate to you all. And actually, this is a video that I was working on yesterday. So it's how apropos, if you will, that I have this video, because now I can actually tie it into what I've just been saying to you all to kind of help drive this point home, which is the whole thing. This whole system is designed to just protect itself. It is truly designed to uphold itself and the injustices currently in place. So think about that, think about that. This is a video that I'm going to add now from
people who work in it, and I knew this because I had work to do, above all commit violence.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to rewind this in a second. This is a former diplomat turned truth teller. Let me rewind this. And enjoy. It's a 2-minute video, and then we'll get right back to our book. Yeah? Here we go.
Above all, states and the people who work in it, and I knew this because I had worked in it, want to feel that they are necessary. And sometimes they have to prove it. And war, I'm afraid to say, is one of the ultimate ways that the state proves its necessity. All states are allowed to do things that individuals are not allowed to do. Above all, commit violence. States have a monopoly of violence.
In this episode, we're looking at my conversation with Khan Ross, former government insider turned whistleblower.
I was very heavily involved in the Iraq WMD issue. I helped set up the Weapons Inspection Agency, the UN Weapons Inspection Agency. I was deeply versed in the intelligence about WMD. And so I was extremely familiar with the case that the government was making for war, and knew immediately that its case was, to put it politely, grossly exaggerated. The experience of being around people in government, ministers, prime ministers, presidents, that's one of the reasons I became an anarchist, because I think it's all a bit of a myth that these folks are really impressive and competent and know what they're doing. I wanted to regard people like me and my colleagues as decent people, and in many ways they are decent people. I thought of myself as a decent person. And yet you are put in a framework that allows you to do terrible things. And this is the history of moral crimes is usually people are put in circumstances that makes them behave badly. People are not innately evil. They wouldn't otherwise choose to do evil things. And I saw the state, in particular Washington, construct a new way to legitimize itself by finding an enemy, almost any enemy, in order to prove its necessity to a population that was otherwise would doubt its need for a state that had failed to protect it. And we saw how the narrative on Iraq began to shift, and I saw my own government go with it and fail to question it. And it's based on a premise that other people are not to be trusted, that without authority we would return to a state of nature which is essentially violent. And I don't believe that people are really like that, and that the claim that we have to have coercive authority to control us to stop that happening, I think is at best an untested claim, and at worst it's an utter fallacy which we're foolish to believe.
Man. Phenomenal interview conducted by the Russell Brand, who has been seemingly a truth teller during this time. He's left Holly Weird behind and decided that his path now is to bring information and truth and expose, maybe the less agreeable, or to some what would be the non-agreeable side of the coin of what's really taking place. For that, I have great admiration and respect for him. He has been, his videos and his channel has been a great source of information for me, even in educating me, because he's been able to have access to guests like this, which I pray I can too one day. Once we grow this channel to a certain point, I can bring people like Naomi Klein, Carne Ross, who you've just seen with speaking with Russell Brand, maybe even Russell Brand himself, JP Sears. I would love to have JP Sears on here. Many people I would love to have here, obviously Paul Chak, yada, yada, yada. But in time. But what I'm saying is, I really benefited from Russell Brand's YouTube channel over the, are we still calling it I'm not even going to say it, vid thing era, because I know YouTube, I know you are listening. So yeah, if you've not checked out his channel, go and support, because he's putting out great content. I'm not saying I agree with everything. Again, you have to apply your own critical thinking and your intuition, but there has been a lot that I have benefited from in terms of information that he's been able to procure and gather. He's had Eckhart Tolle, so many people, loads and loads of people. All right, guys, finally, here we are 20 minutes into this live yet, and she's finally going to get to the book. So because I've taken up 20 minutes, we will just read a couple of pages together. Like I said, this chapter is really, really, really long. And then, yeah, we'll have to just pick up again, won't we, on our next slide. So with animal products, in the voice of Paul Chek, I believe meat is essential for optimal health. That's why I said in the voice of Paul Chek. I believe meat is essential for optimal health. The amount of animal products that you should consume will vary greatly depending on your primal pattern, diet type, and other lifestyle factors. One thing is consistent: always choose high-quality sources when consuming animal products. Cows, sheep, buffalo, etc. are designed to eat grass. However, most commercially raised cows are fed grains, wheat, and corn that quickly make them fat. These animals are not designed to eat grains. When their entire diet is made up of grains, the animals often become sick and the quality of the fats and protein in their meat declines. Michael Pollan's New York Times article, Power Steer, describes how calves weaned from their mothers and forced onto a diet of corn and grain require antibiotics, and many become so sick that they nearly die. Some commercial meat producers have begun research trials adding cardboard, newspaper, and sawdust to cattle feeding programs to reduce costs. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA officials, say that it's not uncommon for some feed-a-lot operators to mix industrial sewage and oils into feed to reduce costs and fatten animals more quickly. There are numerous reports of animal cruelty emanating from investigations of factory farming. Most of the chickens and pigs that end up on your dinner table today are raised in extremely tight cages, restricting exercise. Many factory farmed animals are raised in giant barns and they commonly never see the natural light of day. They are fed a constant supply of antibiotics to aid in both rapid growth and to keep them alive, as they literally live their lives in their own feces. You may be wondering about the consequences of raising animals this way. In 1998, the USDA Inspections and Safety System reclassified an array of animal diseases as being defects that rarely or never present a direct public health risk, and said unaffected carcass portions could be passed on to consumers by cutting out the lesions. The agency said that the following animal diseases do not present a health danger to humans: cancer, pneumonia of poultry called ursaculitis, glandular swellings or lymphomas, sores, infectious arthritis, diseases caused by intestinal worms, tumors. In the case of tumors, the guidelines state remove localized lesions and pass unaffected carcass portions to you, the consumer. Organic meat and poultry companies can now apply to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, to have their products labeled as certified organic. Under the rule, meat and poultry must be certified as organic by one of the 33 private or 11 state-run groups approved by the Agricultural Department's Food Safety and Inspection Service. Certified meat should have no antibiotics, no growth hormones, and the animals have to be fed 100% organic feed. There is one problem that you should be aware of with organic meats. Just because it's organic doesn't mean that it's grass-fed. Even if an animal is fed organic grains, it's still getting a diet that is less than ideal for its makeup. Some people who are gluten intolerant find that they do not do well when they consume meats and poultry from grain-fed sources. Your best option is to get organic, grass-fed meats. If you cannot find that, grass-fed would be your second best option. Eggs. Eggs are considered to be one of the most complete and pure sources of protein by many pioneering nutritionists. Unadulterated eggs are, in fact, not only an excellent source And they're also a source of dietary fats. In his book, Foods That Heal, Dr. Bernard Jensen describes eggs as having the right nutrients for the brain, nerves, and glands. My grandfather, whose hobby was a study of nutrition, told me that when I was a boy to always eat eggs. He correctly predicted that more and more doctors would tell their patients not to eat eggs, secondary to the cholesterol scare. He emphasized that despite claims that eggs have too much fat or cholesterol, a healthy egg contains a healthy egg contains adequate lecithin to emulsify the fats in an egg, making the whole egg a well-balanced natural food source that is healthy. The problem today is that egg is only as good as the bird, which is only as good as its environment and the food which it ate. And of course, the soil which it was raised on. Chickens that live a natural life by the design of Mother Nature produce eggs composed of quality proteins and an optimal omega-3, omega-6 fat ratio. You see, a free-range egg will have a ratio between 1 and 1 of omega-3s and omega-6, whilst a typically commercially raised egg will have a ratio of 1 to 116 all the way up to 130. This presents a problem for those who eat too many conventional raised eggs, as too much omega-6 fatty acid in your diet facilitates the process of inflammation in our bodies. So again, omega-6, too much of that is no. You want to have a more equitable ratio between omega-3s and omega-6, but in commercially raised chickens and eggs, what they're seeing is that the ratio, instead of being 1 to 1, even up to 1 to 4 is suitable. Instead is 1 to 16 all the way up to 1 to 30. That's huge. That's a 4+ times increase, right? So yeah, that's exponential. Something to consider when you're looking at foods that have been quote unquote fortified with omega-6. You don't need all that omega-6. As you can see, it actually leads to inflammation. There was a big scare regarding cholesterol content in eggs during the 1980s. However, many don't understand that cholesterol is a key building block for all cells and is produced by our bodies as a response to stress. Think about that. When there's an inflammatory process, there's an elevated need for cholesterol. Stress, alcohol, medical drugs, and even many food additives are all capable of causing inflammation in the gut, significantly elevating the body's need for cholesterol. But when a trip to the doctor reveals high cholesterol, you're often prescribed medication and to stay away from the foods that you actually need to produce adequate cholesterol to heal the damaged cells. Doctors seldom look into the potential causes of elevated cholesterol. To test the difference between a cage-raised chicken and an organic free-range chicken, try this demonstration. Compare the effort it takes to break the leg away from the thigh on a typically commercially raised chicken versus a free-range chicken, or even better, an organic free-range chicken. You'll probably be amazed to find that it is 3 or 4 times harder to break the ligaments off a free-range bird's knee joint. I've seen the exact same problem with many athletes on garbage food diets that get, muscle, ligament, or connective tissue injuries and can't heal, sometimes after years of therapy. Because, as we know, food becomes you. You are what you eat, right? So if you're putting rubbish in, you're producing rubbish matter, collagen, not collagen, but like connective tissue, connective tissue and ligaments and muscles, because your body builds you literally cells, right, which build everything. So let's move on to seafood. As recently as 100 years ago, our oceans produced an excellent source of edible organic plant and sea life. Today, most of our oceans are toxic. Billions of pounds of sewage and industrial waste are dumped into the oceans by industrial nations every day. This irresponsible behavior not only poisons fish, it's coming back to get us. According to Stephanie Hawkins Johnson, an orca researcher at the University of Washington, the lack of salmon today and the presence of PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, which is a pesticide, appear to be the primary reasons for the decline in the killer whale population. An orca needs 40 to 120 kgs of salmon a day. And if it doesn't get it, it draws from its blubber, which causes PCBs that are stored in fat in order to protect the whale's liver. So not unlike our own bodies, which store fat around our cells to protect the toxins from going into our blood supply. The PCBs are stored in fat to protect the whale's liver. Then they go on to enter into the system. PCBs contaminated blubber in turn affects the whale's immune, neurological, and reproductive system. The Inuit people on Baffin Island live about as far north as one can go. They consume mostly marine mammal meat as an essential staple of their diet. The Inuits are found to be consuming up to 20 times the recommended safe limit of the pesticide chlorindane, a sugar cube-sized piece of mactac. The skin and surface fat from the beluga whale contains the accepted maximum weekly limit of PCBs. In 1 week, it is normal for some Inuit people to eat 100 times that amount, destroying our ecosystems, making fish unhealthy to eat. In fact, the National Academy of Science estimated in 1991 that the risk of cancer to the average consumer who eats seafood can be sometimes 75 times greater than normally accepted guidelines. Our drugs, industrial chemicals, and pesticides are affecting the lives of every living creature on this earth, be it in the soil, be they on the soil, in the water, or in the air. We are making them all sick and progressively killing them. More living species are dying and becoming extinct than ever before in history because of man. Concerns about our farmed fish. Let's see. Our oceans have become fished out, to use a fisherman's term, and toxic. The environmental situation and demand for fish, forever considered a healthy food, has resulted in a boom of fish farms. Unfortunately, eating farm-raised fish isn't as safe as it may sound. Fish farming methods are quite similar to those of the commercial cattle industry. As with the cattle, fish are fed grains and soy and are given a wide range of antibiotics and other drugs. As a result, farm-raised fish are likely to contain residues of a wide variety of animal drugs, some of which are carcinogenic. Furthermore, when you buy farm-raised fish, you have no idea where the farm is located in most cases. If the fish farm is anywhere near, within 100 miles of a major industrial complex or commercial farming operation, or on the same coastline or anywhere near a river that feeds into the coastline, you run a significant risk of eating farm-raised fish that is high in pesticide and industrial chemical residues. Chemicals commonly found in seafood, be it from fish farms or otherwise, are benzene, hexachloride, chlordane, DDT, dieldrin, dioxin, heptachloral, hexachlorobenzene, lindane, polychlorinated binephyls. Sounds delicious. Rotating sources of protein will minimize chances of overexposing yourself to any given pesticide, antibiotic, or drug residues that may have tainted your food, not to mention heavy metal contamination. Be aware that swordfish, shark, tuna, and other deep water fish, particularly the bigger ones, accumulate more mercury than the smaller fish with shorter lifespans. So again, being careful about consuming too much big fish, which, swordfish, tuna, quite popular, aren't they? Anyways, carrying on. Today, many of these fish, fresh off the boat, have been found to have mercury levels so high that eating them more than once a week is considered dangerous by many health experts. The greatest concern appears to be fish from the inland waters of the U.S. Midwest and the state of Florida. When cooking fish, particularly a bigger fish that accumulates heavy metals, it's a good idea to grill or broil them to allow the juices to drip out. This allows the pesticide residue and other chemicals to escape as you cook the fish. This is due in part to the fact that many industrial chemicals and pesticide residues that accumulate in fish are stored in the fat of the fish. Same is true of animals and man, which begins to drip away when heated to cook temperatures. Anytime you can trim fat off the fish, it's a good idea. Avoid freshwater fish unless it comes from high mountain lakes and streams, far from commercial enterprises. Avoid farm fish farm-raised fish. In addition to the concerns I've presented above, there's a difference in the omega-3/6 fatty acid ratios in farm-raised fish versus natural freshwater fish or ocean fish. Within a few exceptions, the fat ratio in farm-raised fish are about the same as cage-raised chicken eggs. Typically, this is between 16 and 30 times omega-6 for every one omega-3 fat molecule. Remember, research on developmental man suggests that we should eat a ratio of 1 to 4 omega-6 to omega-3. We cannot outsmart Mother Nature. It simply doesn't work. Have you read the ingredient list on the labels of cured fish and meats such as bacon, ham, beef jerky, salami, and packaged luncheon meats? You'll find verbiage there that looks like a foreign language, not normal to any part of food, not normal like a part of any food. Two such ingredients in many cured or packaged meats are nitrites and nitrates. Both of these additives are commonly used in meats mentioned above, as well as fermented sausages, i.e. fermented sausages, bologna, frankfurters, deviled ham, meat spreads, potted meat, spiced ham, and smoked fish products. Nitrates and nitrites are used primarily as a color fixative to give meats a blood red color to convey a tangy effect to the palate and to prohibit the development of Clostridium botulinum spores. Both additives have been found to cause cancer and tumors in test animals. According to the Safe Shopper's Bible, researchers reported that children who ate hot dogs cured with nitrate a dozen or more times a month have a risk of leukemia 10 times higher than what is normal. Furthermore, children born to mothers who consume hot dogs once or more a week during their pregnancy are twice as likely to have childhood brain tumors. Germany banned nitrates and nitrites in 1997, except for the use with certain fish species, whilst in the US, the FDA revoked its proposed phase out because manufacturers said there was no adequate substitute. How convenient. I suspect that what the manufacturers were really saying is that there is no cheap substitute for nitrites. So even though they are known to produce disease in test animals, we'll keep feeding them to you anyways. Yum, yum. Processed meats also trigger false food allergy for many people. Some in meats and meat themselves produce histamine. You're probably familiar with histamine. It's what makes your nose run when you have a cold, hence the use of antihistamine in medications. The addition of wheat to numerous processed meat products is also another problem. Again, if you're gluten intolerant, make sure to read labels on any deli meats and sausage, etc. Checkpoints for safe meat, fowl, fish, and egg consumption. Always go out of your way to purchase organic, free-range products. They're far more nutritious as well as free of pesticides, hormones, and antibiotics. If organic meats are not available, the next best thing is grass-fed and free-range meats. At least they were free to roam, got exercise, and ate what they were designed to eat. Avoid farmed fish. Read all labels eliminating or at least minimizing the consumption of processed meats. Minimize consumption of smoked meats and fish. Rotate your meat sources. And do not fear the fat in meat or on the body of any protein source that is organic, that is free range. This is the fat that got us here. All right, the next topic is actually going to be fats and oils in our nutrition series here. But that was going to be all for today, guys. I have to get going. She has much to do today. I think you're going to notice maybe a short break here in our live series because I will be traveling back to the continent next week and will not have internet access from what I gather and have been told. So I shall be back more than likely in a couple of weeks' time. In the meantime, catch up on the live episodes that you've missed. Please send me your comments, questions, concerns in the comment section below. And let's stay in touch. Until next time, get free and stay free. Bye.